Primarily be talking about small business relief and the efforts that we're taking here in Kansas City, Missouri. But first, I wanted to talk about our COVID-19 response and a few other priorities. First, in connection with our parks, we continue to address issues with folks. Most people are certainly doing what they're allowed to do in the parks. You can be there, you can walk, but you can't congregate in groups. To help prevent some of that, we will be erecting a few street blockades into select parks in Kansas City. We also will be closing our dog parks. That is not to be punitive or malicious in any way. It's just because we've seen in a number of different areas that there has been significant congregation of folks. We haven't seen maintained social distancing, so the steps that we'll have there are closures of the dog parks, erection of more barriers at different parks, and we continue to take out, where possible, netting and other equipment both at tennis courts and basketball courts. Again, the parks are open, but playgrounds, courts, playing surfaces, those types of things are closed right now. We also understand that we've had further exposure of public safety personnel in Kansas City to COVID-19. Both in the Kansas City Police Department and the Kansas City Fire Department. Both departments take quick action to make sure that there's quarantining in effect for those who might have been in contact with subject individuals. We continue to work with the health department and frankly healthcare providers from the different departments to ensure not only that those who are infected and exposed are taken care of, but also that everyone else who may come into contact with them, both employees of the city, but also those with whom they are working, are adequately protected. And so after every exposure, in case you're wondering, particularly if we know where it came from, we have good tracing that is followed by our health department to make sure that we're tracking individuals who might be subject to exposure, to make sure that we're taking those very important steps necessary. On the wish list of what we continue to need in Kansas City, two very simple things: more testing and more personal protective equipment. On the testing side, we've had conversations now for weeks with the state in connection with an enhancement of testing in the Kansas City area by the beginning of April. We are now at the beginning of April. We are not sure if we've necessarily seen it ramp up yet. In all of our conversations with our state level leadership and our federal leadership, we continue to look for that. The other side of the state, St. Louis, I know has had more drive-through testing now for a number of weeks. We'd like to see that build up in the Kansas City area, particularly in Kansas City, Missouri. That's something that we continue to look for. On personal protective equipment, while there is more coming, the need is this, that we have a lot of firefighters, paramedics, and others who are reporting that the direction to them is that they have to just reuse equipment repeatedly beyond the amount of times they should be using said equipment. That is unacceptable for us. The city is looking to procure more equipment as much as possible. We've received some from philanthropic organizations in the private sector, but frankly we continue to need more protective equipment and more masks, not just for our emergency personnel, but also for healthcare workers. Also, I'd like to see it for grocery workers and a lot of other folks that are interacting regularly with the public. So that is our COVID-19 in a nutshell. I'm going to take a moment now to talk about business relief. That is something that's vital for Kansas City. After that, I'll make a moment for Ruben Alonzo and Nia Richardson to speak to you about business relief efforts here in Kansas City. So ever since we issued our first order on March the 12th, we have had lots of businesses that said, what about making sure that we can survive? What about making sure that in Kansas City, a small business has a chance to weather this crisis? And in case you're wondering, our priorities have continued to be this. One, how do we keep our community safe? Two, how do we make sure that as we go through this crisis, our families, our communities, our neighborhoods are able to survive it? A key part of that is making sure that small businesses in Kansas City are protected. We know that there will be federal stimulus that hopefully come down to our community soon, are able to deploy to businesses large and small. But what about those, sometimes you call them mom and pop shops, neighborhood businesses, so many others that are negatively impacted by this crisis? We recognize not only that the crisis will impact them now, next month, but perhaps there are some businesses that may not have the chance to open again if they can't get good cash flow. That's why we have acted with a level of swiftness that you rarely see in government, local, state, or federal, and announcing a $500,000 relief fund. The City Council passed that fund last week in connection with our budget passage last week, and that fund, fortunately, will be able to leverage 3 or 4 times that amount of spending to help get loans out to businesses in Kansas City. We're creating a Kansas City Small Business Emergency Relief Fund. This will be the fashion of a loan loss reserve fund. What that means that is in the first 6 to 12 months, there will be no interest rate charged on these loans. The goal is to actually just get businesses at the smaller business level to be able to receive some funding that's a stopgap to help them to survive. A few of the details relating to the fund are this. 1, the businesses that are able and eligible to the funds are businesses that are 20 employees or under, or businesses that had revenues of $750,000 or less last year. So again, businesses of 20 employees or under and had revenues of $750,000 or less last year. Our goal is this, to try to hit so many neighborhood businesses in every part of Kansas City. We'll be working with the organization AltCap in connection with that fund. AltCap has done this work for years in Kansas City, particularly supporting small businesses throughout our community, women-owned, minority-owned businesses in every part of Kansas City and every part of our entire region, and we're proud to work with them in this effort. AltCap and others yesterday announced a fund that is region and metro-wide. We're happy to have a Kansas City, Missouri portion and investment of this, because I think what you're seeing right now is that at least Kansas City has stepped up and said, we think that is important with taxpayer dollars to make sure that businesses can survive at this time in need. I encourage every local government in our area, every state government, to take a real active role in this, and AltCap is important in helping us with that. A few things that I will note. If you are interested in this fund, if you're one of the many business people and business owners or employees who's called my office or me in recent weeks and said, we need help too, we encourage you to reach out to these organizations. AltCap, you can go to alt-cap.org. That is alt-cap.org, alt-cap.org. To access these funds, you can also call in connection not just with this fund that we're announcing today, the Small Business Emergency Relief Fund, but all other resources that are coming from federal, state, and local resources. You can call KC SourceLink. Their number is 816-235-6500. Again, that's 235-6500. If you lost track of any of these numbers, as people often do, call 311. You can call 311 in Kansas City and say, I'd like access to your business relief fund. I think it's important for my business. Describe it and say you want to talk to the people at AltCap. You can call 311 for that. You can call 311 to talk to the health department. You can call 311 to report a party down the street, right? We're really trying to make it so there's one stop you can go to for city government to help you. We understand that this is a time of challenge and crisis for lots of folks, and we continue to try to help in every way. We think that the enforcement actions that we've taken, the work we've taken with our public health department, our emergency services responses will make our community safer and will flatten the curve. And we think that the important steps that we're announcing today in connection with our business relief fund and an order that I've signed today allow us to take those key and important steps to make sure that businesses can survive this crisis as well. With that, I'll ask Ruben Alonso to come up and say a few words, followed by Nia Richardson to describe the steps that we're taking to support businesses, and then I'll come back to answer questions for you. Mr. Alonso.
Thank you, Mayor Lucas. AltCap is a community development financial institution here based in Kansas City, Missouri, but with a regional focus. We've been committed to bringing capital and resources to businesses and communities that have historically had challenging capital through mainstream financial institutions or traditional financial institutions. We recognized early on that the negative impacts of COVID-19 was going to have a disproportionate impact, negative impact on small businesses, which is why we immediately looked to find partners to put together an effort to support these small businesses, which are so critical to our local economy, but are also just our neighbors, our friends, people who own these businesses, provide services and goods to all of us. So we recognize this loan fund is just a small piece of the comprehensive effort that's going to be needed to address these unprecedented times, both at the local level, state level, federal level. We're honored to be a part of the effort to support small businesses during this time, along with the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce, the Civic Council, the KCADC, the Kauffman Foundation, and now the city, the mayor reminded me that, hey, AltCap, you're a CDFI based in Kansas City, don't forget about your backyard, and we certainly don't want to forget about those businesses located right here in Kansas City, Missouri, and supporting those small businesses and helping them get through this very difficult time.
Good afternoon, Mayor Richardson. I oversee the KC BizCare office here with the City of Kansas City. Our office is working in partnership with the Mayor's office to answer questions from our citizens and from our businesses to help them determine if they're considered an essential business. And just any other question that they have, we do our best to try to respond and try to keep people calm and answer questions for them when they need to. Other things we're working on, we were already working on objectives for inclusive procurement with minority businesses. We're continuing that work. We're continuing conversations with our minority chambers to look at what their needs are, especially for their members, to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our most vulnerable businesses. Understanding that minority businesses always had issues with loans and things of that sort. How do we fill the gap? If you weren't able to get a loan before, you may not be able to get one now. So how do we ensure that those businesses are still able to survive? Also note that I did get a message from our Central City Sales Tax Board Chair to let people know that the board is considering or having discussions about a relief fund, but it's still in discussion. We've met about it. We are meeting again on April 4th. I believe it's this Saturday. We're having a long strategic planning meeting about it, as well as a lot of other things. So that conversation is happening as well. So there may be other opportunities for relief for our businesses, particularly those in the urban core inner city of our city.
Thank you. All right, we have a few minutes for questions for you, and we're happy to go around. Yes, ma'am.
How much is there a cap on how much a certain business can get? How do you determine how much businesses?
So that'll be the important work that I know Ruben and his colleagues will do. Actually, I'll let you come on and answer for us.
So the regional effort that we launched yesterday to raise $5 million in loan capital so that we can provide to small businesses. We have some minimum requirements to qualify for the loans. You have to be a business of 20 employees or less than $2.5 million in revenues, be a Kansas City region or metro-based business. With the city's participation, we're looking now to really focus in on even the smaller businesses that are kind of really at the margins right now and can use a financial lifeline. So looking at loans up to $25,000, much smaller in terms of revenues and employee size. But the entire effort, I think, is really focused on these local businesses, small businesses that are disproportionately impacted by the COVID-19 or the response to COVID-19. So a lot of retail businesses, Main Street businesses, food service, business in those industries and sectors.
So is this Kansas City fund, the $500,000 considered a larger $5 million program?
It is, but specifically being leveraged to support additional capital raising to provide loans to Kansas City-based businesses. But we feel this is just a great exemplary example of a regional approach, a regional partnership to support all small businesses. But we obviously want to support as many small businesses here in Kansas City, Missouri as well. And we think with what the city is stepping up with is going to allow us to do that.
You had an influx of people applying for these loans, maybe more than you expected. How are you going to be deciding which businesses get those loans?
Yeah. So we had an overwhelming response when we announced the regional fund yesterday. We expected that. At least 200 intake forms, people inquiring about the loan fund since this morning. So it's going to be very challenging to really prioritize those businesses, but I think with the requirements that we have in place, the type of businesses that we're really hoping to focus on, we think we're going to get those funds to the businesses that need it the most. And like I said before, this is I think one piece of a much larger response to this effort in supporting small businesses. There are SBA resources out there, the SBA Disaster Loan Fund, the SBA 7A loan fund. Obviously, our banking community will hopefully be stepping up here as well to support these small businesses. Alt-Cap partners in the city really want to focus in on those businesses that maybe don't have access to those resources or can't access those resources for whatever reason. Yeah, so the initial is that intake form. We'll get some initial information from them, but there is a much more lengthy or comprehensive application process as well. So I think this is not dissimilar to any other type of loan application. We're going to be requiring similar information, financials, things like that. But that information is located on the website. We will be very kind of transparent upfront about what we're going to need to hopefully make a quick decision to support the businesses.
Mayor was talking about how they're trying to do this very swiftly. All businesses now. How soon after they apply do you expect to give them funds if they're approved?
We're working as fast as we can. Certainly, once we get all the information, including that complete application, supporting documentation that we're going to need, we hope to turn things around within 48 to 72 hours. Really wanting to get those funds out as soon as possible. But that's our goal.
Fulfilling the criteria laid out, is the maximum loan limit 25,000 or does it go up?
For the regional effort that we launched yesterday, we had a little bit higher maximum loan size. It was up to $100,000. The city was really focused on providing smaller loans to have a larger impact. So that maximum loan amount is $25,000.
And I think you may have went over this, but is the loan low or no interest? What is the...
Yeah, so we've got some really flexible, patient terms with this loan fund and the loans that we're providing. So really want to give those businesses that breathing room up front, providing no interest, deferred payments with the first year. We're looking at 3-year term loans. So that initial first year, 6 months to 12 months, providing again that no interest, deferred payment terms of the loan, and then it's years 2 and 3 kind of having a low interest payment associated with the loan.
Are there any strings attached to the loan without like letting go of employees or anything like that?
Yeah, we really want to allow this loan to keep businesses in business, do what they can to pay kind of immediate expenses they need to cover. Also, if there's any protective measures they can take right now with this loan to kind of weather the storm here for a couple months. That's the expectation, while also providing them a little bit of working capital to hopefully start on the road to recovery.
Are there any other disqualifiers besides the income?
Those are the main ones, and where you're located, obviously, as well. Certainly, as we're working with the city, we want to make sure we can support as many Kansas City-based businesses as possible.
Good? Sure. I'll stick you.
Yeah, sure.
I wanted to ask you, today is the first
Yes, ma'am.
day that bills are due. There's a lot of people looking at their bills today and feeling a lot of fear. Is there any possibility that you are considering freezing rents during this time?
So a few different things that we have done already. One, as you know, in collaborative work that my office has done with a lot of our counties, we have suspended evictions in every county in which Kansas City sits. So that's one step. In terms of a rent freeze, that is something I do not believe that I can decree by order. However, in our conversations with a lot of landlords, landlord groups, apartment associations across Kansas City throughout this crisis, we've heard that there will be many that are friendlier to understanding that rent may be slower in getting paid this month, that some people will not be able to pay. Much like what we're doing with every other step that we're working with right now, we really call on area businesses, landlords, others to understand that there are people struggling at the time, and that's the work that we've largely done, but we do not have an administrative mechanism by which we can freeze the rent. I understand the merits of both sides. I think right now I would encourage anyone who is dealing with someone who is having trouble paying a bill, whether it be rent, insurance, a utility, anything under the sun, to understand why those payments may be slow going in. And so I would encourage everyone to understand what the moment is, and the businesses, and I commend a lot of our businesses in this region, but I would hope businesses understand that too. And so you've seen that from a large class of folks who understand why shutoffs can't happen right now, and I think you will see that a lot of people that are trying to pay rent and pay a number of bills that are coming up right now. That's going to be a challenge for as long as we're in this crisis. So assuming that if on May 1st we find ourselves in a similar position, we will face it again. And so everyone who can pay their bills, I say do it for sure. But for those who are having trouble, talk to your landlords, talk to others, because I'm understanding from many of them that they will say that there's more space to be given at this time. And we don't believe safety, so I guess I disagree with the premise of the question. We have declared essential versus non-essential businesses. Necessarily, that is a bright line rule. In law, we create bright lines. Some things are close questions, but they're on one side of the line or the other. The core question we ask ourselves is, what can we do to keep our community safe? Where is there a low likelihood of community transmission of the coronavirus? In places where you are close to people, where you're interacting with them over a sustained period, likely in personal services, then you have a chance for a greater spread. Essential doesn't mean valuable, and I've said this time and again. Every business is valuable, everybody's livelihood is valuable. Essential has been for us, what are some businesses that are necessary or establishments necessary to sustain life in our community, like a hospital, or to sustain the functioning of our community, like public works construction or the water department or anything under the sun. That's the sort of work that we've tried to do, and so that's where you get that delineation. It wasn't as simple as there's just a list of 300 businesses and we're picking sides. That's how we come to that break. On that one, I would say I disagree with the premise too. It's not about proving if you're essential or not. What it's about is, frankly, answering this question. Do you think you're essential or not? If you're wondering whether your business is essential or not, it likely is not. And I say that with disrespect. I gave them this example before. I'm an attorney. I'm not an attorney for anybody who's in a criminal case or anything like that. I'm a business lawyer by profession. My law firm is closed right now. The reason for that isn't because we lack value, we're not useful, we can't come up with reasons to suggest we don't do some public good. It's because we don't need to work right now, at least in the office, at a time when we're saying to lots of businesses that we're trying to maintain social distancing, that we're trying to get people to stay home. I mean, general idea is this: everybody should be home. And to the extent that you're not home, we should all ask why. You're all out here because you're journalists covering an event, spread a message to the public. I'm here because I'm the mayor of this city and trying to make sure things keep running and functioning, right? That's the sort of focus we have. So I would actually say we should move beyond what business is and isn't, and instead see how all of us can actually stay at home and support the order. And frankly, there's a reason why I have these people with me here today, because I have heard from lots of businesses that are saying, okay, we're going to respect the orders, but how do I feed my family? Right? How do I make sure my business stays afloat? That's the sort of question we're trying to answer right now with these active steps from Kansas City government. And I commend my office, I commend the city council and so many others for taking these steps. Because part of this public health crisis is making sure we address the public health issue, but it's also making sure that we establish, I think, enough good business and social welfare to make sure people can survive through this moment. And that's why I think we're doing what we're doing. And I think this is a bold step for our community. And this is only the beginning of our long-term support and business investment to make sure our community can get back on its feet. Anything else for you? All right. Yes. Actually, we'll get you. Okay, we'll get you offline. All right. All right. Thank you all so much. We appreciate you. Thank you. Joey, come on. Yeah.